Hi, I'll be creating an application using Microsoft Visual Studio.net to read an Excel file and save all its contents and all the data to Access database. So first of all, let me open Microsoft Visual Studio 2010, 12, whatever uh, you have. So let's start it by having a new project file, and let's choose a simple Windows application form, and let's name it as Excel to Access Converter. Click OK, and it's a simple Windows application form, and we'll use data namespace and the OLEDB provider to read the access file, and because it's much easier, instead of using the component of the Excel, so just rename it as uh, Excel to Access Converter, and we'll simply just click here, uh, drag a button here, and just name it as read Excel. So read Excel, and let's change its name to btn read Excel. Okay, we can use a text box to give the file name, and we can also use open file dialog box to select the file, but let's currently give a name directly to here. So let me create an Excel file. Let's say here is an Excel file, a new Excel file. uh, let's put some, and here is the sheet name, and we can rename it as contacts, and here let me write here in the last name. Here we can write address, and then let's say right here number, and okay, and just uh, write some anonymous data. Let's just say for go nd, and number, let's say it's 701. Let's write here Stacy USA number 334, whatever, and let me save it as let me save it in C drive, and let me write as contact book.xlsx. Okay, I haven't selected C drive contact book. So we have simply saved a file, and let me give its name here directly, or we can also use open file dialog box to select it dynamically, but let me give the OKC colon slash contact book.xl sx. Is it access sx? Yeah, it's okay. Okay, now let me click on the read Excel file. I told you that I'll be using system dot data dot OLEDB class, OLEDB namespace, and the benefit of using system.data dot OLEDB is that we can treat the file, the Excel file, as a database. So we can treat the whole Excel file. For example, this contact book.xlsx is we can consider it as our database, and all the sheets here like contacts or sheet 2 or sheet 3 whatever we have, we can use them as the tables. So it's quite easier to work with the Excel or any Microsoft Office file using data.oldb namespace classes. So as all database for all database application, we can use the uh, connect connected data approach or connectionless data approach. So let's use a connectionless data approach. And in connectionless data approach, what we need to do is we need to define a data connection, and then we have to create a data adapter. So let's first create an OLEDB connection object. Let's name it as con equals to new OLEDB connection. So what we need to do is we need to uh, give here the first argument is connection string. So we need to give a connection string here, and the connection string is almost same, and the connection string is different for different files. For example, for Excel we'll have a specific sort of connection string. For an Access file we'll have a different format of the connection string, and for SQL server we'll have different format of connection string. But whatever the type we'll use, that would have follow the same connection string. The only thing that we need to change is the file name. So let me look at take a connection string. So here is the connection string for Excel 2010 files. Its provider equals to microsoft.ece.oledb 12.0. So that is an important thing, that if we are working with Excel 2010 file, then we'll use microsoft.ace.oldb 12.0. And if we are working with Excel 2007 file, then we have to make two changes. First we have to write here 4.0, the version of the OLEDB would be 4.0, and also the extended properties equals to Excel 12 for 2010, Excel 2010, and if you are using Excel 2007, then we have to put here 8.0. So that is a simple change according to the version Excel version we are using. So here we have to put the file name. So we already have the file name in our text box. So let's rename this text box as file name.txt txt file name. So we can write it here, txt file name.txt. So the whatever the file name we'll give or we'll choose, that would be like that would become the source of the Excel file. So after creating the connection, now we are able to connect to that specific Excel file that we have given here, txt file name.txt. Whatever the file name the text box has, will be now our application is now able to connect to that specific file. Now we have to read data from that file, and for that purpose what we'll do, we'll create an OLEDB data adapter. So what is OLEDB data adapter, or simply data adapter? Data adapter is actually a bridge between our application and our source database or source file. So what and as I told you that we are using connectionless architecture, database architecture. In connectionless database architecture, the whole data, according to the query that we will give here in the OLEDB data adapter, the whole data is taken from the source file, and it's it's brought to the application, and we'll create a dataset file, and the whole data that we'll bring from the data source would be saved or will be kept in locally in a data set. So data set also represents a similar architecture or structure as we have of the table or whatever the source has, and that structure is based on the query that we'll give. For example, let's create an OLEDB data adapter, and it would be let's giving the name DA, like data adapter equals to new OLEDB data adapter. And now we can give select command and we can give the connection. So what we can do is, first of all, we need to write a select command based on, this is a simple SQL query based on which the application will decide that what sort of data the application or the data adapter will pick or choose or select from the source file or source database, and it will bring it to the bring it to the application. So let's select everything. We can write here select static from, and we write here the name of the sheet. So what's the name of our sheet is contacts, so we need to write it in scare brackets for the Excel. So we'll write here contacts, and we also have to add a dollar sign. It's in end. Let me have work. Yeah, and then we'll tell the data adapter that from what would be the source, because data adapter doesn't know what is the source. So when we'll provide here the information of the connection, whatever connection we have made, so when we'll give here con, now the data adapter will use this connection to run this query on the source file, and it will bring whatever the data, whatever the query demands for. So now when we run this application, data adapter, as I told you, that it's a bridge between the our application and the source. So it will take the data from the source and bring it to the application, but in application we need to store that data in a data set. So let's create a data set here. Go to toolbox, and if all Windows forms are selected, you can find here the data set. You can drag and drop it here, and we are not currently using type data set. We can use untyped data set. Click OK, and let's give it a nice name. We can say that DS contacts. Okay, now we'll ask the data adapter to fill that data set. So we can da dot fill, and we'll give him here the name of the data set we recently created, ds contacts. ds contacts. So now when we'll run this application, all the data from this whatever file we'll use would be loaded to our application. Oh, I have used the wrong name, CONN, rather it was CON contacts. Okay, let me again run it. You can always use the exception handling try catch block to get rid of such messages and to handle the exception in a proper way. So how to know that whether the data is taken from the source and it has come to the application? So let's simply display it using a message box. Like we can like message box dot show, and here it will be ds contacts dot tables 0, because there is only one table, and that would be the table 0 dot rows dot count dot toString. Now actually what we want to do is that we want to know that in the first table of our data set, how many rows are there. So the rows dot count property will give us the total number of rows that that table, the data set has. So let's run it and let's see what it shows. Okay, it shows two, and we know that our we have actually two basic. These are actually the names, as we in the access file in the tables we have the column names. So here last name, address, and number are column names, and that is the data. So there are two files of the data. So what if we want to look at the data and if we want to change it? So there's a very simple way. We can drag and drop data grid view control, and we can bind it with the data source. So if we want to add, and if we want to add new rows, or we want to edit the rows, or edit the whatever the data we bring, and then or we want to delete the data, so we should check them. Or otherwise, if you don't want to add or edit or delete the data, you can uncheck it. So choose data source here. Don't let's keep it none, and let me write it. So in the read excel file, that whatever the data set I have filled, I can bind. So let bind this data set to the data grid view. So let me give it a proper name, uh, dg contacts. So in read excel function, let me write dg contacts dot data source equals to the name of the data set, and it's ds contacts dot tables 0. And now when we will run the application and when we read the excel file, so that was the message box, and now you can see that our data is shown in a nice format in data grid view control, and it's quite easier. So if you want to add new rows, we can add one, but for adding and for updating it or deleting it, we need to update the data source. Okay, now it's the first part. Now let me now create a new database in access. Create a blank database, and I'll use the design view to create my table, and let me give the table name as tbl contacts. Okay, and the field name is last name. Let me uncheck its primary key, and that is not the auto number, it should be the text, and then address, and it's again text, and here is the number. You can take it as text or any number. So let me now save it, and instead now what we need to do is we need to create a new data source that can link this access data file to our application. So there is an easier way to do this task, so we'll use that easier way because we can reuse this to for the database applications as well. So let's go to the data. Let me go here. Click on the data uh, menu, and here is add new data source. We will going to add a new data source that will point to that recently added excel file, access file, what we had given the name to the access file. Let me have a look, and it's database 2. It's database 2.accdb access database. So we'll select here the database, click next. We'll create a data set, click next. We don't have a connection string yet, so we will create a new connection. Click on the new connection, and select Microsoft Access database file. Normally if we click on new connection. Even if I have already used this one, so this tab is connection to Microsoft Access database is comes uh, in hand. So if you want to change thing, or if you don't see this add connection dialog box, uh, normally if the first time what you will see this change data source dialog box. So here you can select the Microsoft Access database file and click OK. Now this dialog box will come. Now from here you can browse your file. So our database file name was database2.accdb. Click on the on its select it, and then if you want to give a username and password, you can write here, otherwise you can leave it as it is. But it's always better to test the connection. So if there is a problem, so you can know if for a priori. Click OK, and now we have created our connection string. So whatever the we have used the OLEDB connection, and we have given the connection string, we have found it, we have already created here using the wizard. So click next. Now the saying the connection you selected uses a local data file that is not in the current project. So now our database file was in my documents and it was not in the current project. So now we have an option to select whether we want to copy the database file from its original destination to our project folder. So let's go to the project folder. It's in the my documents, Wheelshare 2010 projects, and the name is Excel to Access Converter. Now if you look here, you cannot find any database file here, not even in the bin. But as soon as we'll select yes, the now you can see that the database file is copied from its original destination to the project folder. Okay, click next and select tables, because we only have tables, we don't have any views or stored procedures. So click finish. Now we are done with this step. We have created a data source, and you can find that data source here. So here is the table context, a very easy way to create data set and adapter. Data adapter or LED adapter is to simply drag the table name from the data set, and you can see that now it has created automatically a data grid view, and it already has all the fields that were present in the um, table. So let's create a button here that export by writing export